My alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m., a sound as relentless and unchanging as the Colorado dawn that had yet to break. For 23 years, this buzzer had been my reveille. I swung my legs out from under the worn quilt, my bare feet meeting the cold, unforgiving planks of the hardwood floor in my modest Boulder apartment. There was no plush carpet here, no heated tiles whispering of silent luxury. This floor had character. It creaked with every step, a chronicle of a life lived simply, by choice. I shuffled into the small, galley-style kitchen, passing furniture that wouldn't have looked out of place on a curb. My coffee maker was a relic, older than my daughter's surgical residency, but it hissed and gurgled with a familiar loyalty, producing a brew that could kickstart a coma. As the steam curled from my chipped World's Best Dad mug, a gift from Maya a lifetime ago, I eyed the stack of mail on the counter. Utility bills, a flyer for a local grocery sale, a retirement fund statement. Nothing that hinted at the truth. What those mundane envelopes didn't show was the direct deposit that landed in my account on the first of every month. $52,000. Enough to buy a sprawling estate in Cherry Hills Village, to drive a car that purred instead of rattled, to wear suits tailored in London instead of flannel from a discount store. Instead, I drove a 12-year-old Subaru Outback with 180,000 miles on the clock and found my jeans at Kohl's. My neighbors, friendly and unassuming, likely pegged me as a retired blue-collar worker, a man cautiously navigating a fixed income. The truth, as it often is, was far more complex. I am Mike Pendelton, Senior Vice President of Western Operations for Solera Nexus Energies. I oversee a portfolio of solar and geothermal projects spanning from the Rockies to the Pacific, managing budgets that would make a small nation blush. But when I came home, I hung my hard hat on a simple hook by the door and became just Mike, the guy in apartment 3B who took his coffee black. The phone vibrated on the counter, Maya's name flashing on the screen. A smile touched my lips. "Morning, sweetheart. You're up early for a soon-to-be attending." "Hi, Dad." Her voice was warm, layered with the confident cadence of a doctor, but beneath it I detected a faint, tremulous thread of anxiety. "Actually, that's why I'm calling. Julian's parents are in town this weekend. They want to meet you." I set my mug down, the ceramic clicking softly against the Formica counter. "That's wonderful. I've been looking forward to it." They're very successful," she continued, the pause speaking volumes. "The Sterling Group, they own a chain of high-end boutique hotels, 12 of them." Another longer pause. "Dad, maybe, wear something nice. The restaurant is a bit upscale." There it was. My brilliant, accomplished 34-year-old daughter, a woman who held human hearts in her hands, was worried her father, a simple construction manager, would embarrass her in front of her fiancé's lofty family. She had no idea that my monthly salary could purchase one of their precious hotels outright. No fuss. "Sure, honey," I said, my voice even. "I'll dig out my good sweater." "Thanks, Dad. We're meeting him Saturday at 8, the Silverthorn Lodge." The Silverthorn. I knew it intimately. I'd closed a $40 million partnership deal in their Oak Room, had celebrated promotions with single malt scotch in their bar. But to Maya, I was just her hard-working dad who'd probably never set foot in such a place. After we hung up, I stood in the quiet of my living room, the morning light now painting stripes across the worn rug. I had built this life deliberately. After Maya's mother, Eleanor, passed away from cancer when Maya was 10, I vowed to raise our daughter with the values we both cherished, that a person's worth is etched in their character, not printed on their bank statement. My own father had been a mechanic, my mother a school librarian. They taught me that money was a tool, not a trophy. But now, my daughter was ashamed of me. Or, more accurately, she was ashamed of the image she had of me. She was worried her humble father wouldn't measure up to the sterling standards of the Sterlings. A slow, deliberate smile spread across my face. I had spent 40 decades in the cutthroat world of corporate energy. I'd negotiated with oil barons, outmaneuvered lobbyists,
and read people with the precision of a cardiologist reading an EKG. You only see a person's true character when they believe you are beneath them, when they are certain you have nothing to offer, no power to grant, no influence to wield. Saturday night was going to be very, very illuminating. The Sterling family was about to meet Maya's father. They had their assumptions. I had 5 days to prepare. They had no idea what was coming. The research began on Tuesday. I opened my laptop, a no-frills machine I used for browsing and emails, and delved into the Sterling Hospitality Group. Their website was a masterpiece of aspirational marketing. Sleek, minimalist, filled with photos of infinity pools and artfully plated food. A legacy of luxury, the tagline proclaimed, family-owned since 1992. Local business journals provided a clearer, more honest picture. Alastair Sterling had started with a single, failing motor lodge outside Aspen, leveraging charm and a ruthless business acumen to build his empire through strategic acquisitions and favorable zoning. A Denver Business Journal profile from last year noted annual revenues approaching $15 million. Impressive, certainly, but in my world, that was a middling-sized project. I bookmarked the articles, memorizing the key details. 12 properties, a recent and apparently costly expansion into the eco-resort market, a board of directors that included several prominent local figures. These weren't just wealthy. They were ostentatious, the kind of people who believed their success was a divine right. On Wednesday, I ventured into the depths of my storage locker, a dusty, concrete-walled space in the building's basement. Behind boxes of Maya's childhood artwork and old tax returns, I found the uniform of my past. A pair of worn Carhartt pants, a faded red and black flannel shirt, and my old steel-toed Wolverine boots, the leather scarred and scuffed from 1,000 job sites. Slipping them on was like stepping into a second skin, a skin I hadn't occupied in over a decade. The man in the mirror was a ghost, a capable, weathered laborer, a man who knew the weight of a wrench and the bite of a cold wind on a high ridge. On Thursday, I practiced. It felt foolish, pacing my apartment, but I needed the transformation to be complete. My posture shifted. The unconscious authority of the boardroom gave way to a slight, deferential stoop. My voice softened, the commanding baritone dropping to a more hesitant, gentle tone. I rehearsed looking grateful, slightly overwhelmed, the kind of man who would be thankful for any scrap of attention. Maya called on Friday evening, her voice tight. "Dad, just confirming tomorrow. The Sterlings, they're really something. Alastair built everything from the ground up. Eleanor, that's Julian's mom, handles all the branding and design. They have a penthouse in Denver and a ranch in Telluride." They take a breath. "Julian says they're wonderful, but they have high standards. They believe in legacy, in making a mark." I said they sound like driven people, neutrally. "They are. I want this to go perfectly." After she hung up, the silence in my apartment felt heavy. A knot of doubt tightened in my stomach. Was I being a prideful old fool? Perhaps the Sterlings were decent people. Perhaps they would see past the flannel and boots. But Maya's words echoed in the quiet. High standards, legacy. Euphemisms I feared for a worldview that sorted people into two categories, the valuable and the worthless. I had raised my daughter to be better than that. Had the allure of their world blinded her to the lessons of her own childhood? Saturday arrived cloaked in a blanket of low, gray clouds. A fitting atmosphere, I thought. I dressed with methodical care. The flannel, the worn jeans, and the heavy boots. I transferred my wallet, a thin brown leather bifold containing $47 and a basic blue debit card, to my pocket. Tucked behind it, almost invisible, was the other card, matte black titanium, heavy as a promise, with my name engraved in stark silver lettering. That one would remain hidden. For now. The drive to the Silverthorn Lodge in the mountains west of Denver took nearly 2 hours. 2 hours to shed Michael Pendelton, SVP, and fully become Mike, the retired construction hand. The Subaru's engine hummed a familiar tune as I navigated the winding, climbing road, the snow-dusted peaks of the Front Range standing as silent, judgmental witnesses. The lodge appeared like a vision from a fairy tale, a sprawling complex of timber and stone nestled against a pristine lake. Valets in crisp uniforms darted between Range Rovers, Porsches, and the occasional Rolls-Royce. My Subaru, caked with a fine layer of road grime, looked like a lost sheep among wolves. I parked it myself in the farthest reaches of the lot, a long walk from the glittering entrance. The grand lobby was a cathedral of wealth. A massive river rock fireplace roared in the center, its flames reflecting off polished mahogany and brass. The air smelled of pine needles and money. Well-dressed guests moved with an unhurried assurance, their conversations a low hum of ski conditions and private equity. "Dad!" Mai's voice cut through the ambient noise. She hurried toward me, Julian a half step behind. My daughter was radiant in a simple, elegant black dress, but her smile was a fragile thing, threatening to shatter. Julian, tall and handsome in a navy blazer, looked similarly tense. "You found it," Maya said, reaching me. She gave me a quick, tight hug. "The mountains are hard to miss," I said lightly. I turned to Julian and extended a hand. "Julian, good to see you." "You too, Mr. Pendleton," he said, his handshake firm but brief. His eyes flickered over my outfit, a barely perceptible wince in their depths. "My parents are waiting in the dining room. They're eager to meet you." We proceeded through the lobby, a strange parade. I felt the weight of countless sidelong glances, the silent, swift calculations of the wealthy as they categorized me and found me wanting. We were led into the main dining room, a space of vaulted ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the dramatic mountain vista, and tables swathed in blinding white linen. And there they were, Alistair and Eleanor Sturman. Alistair was a large man, not fat but solid, with a magnificent head of silver hair and a tan that spoke of winters in Palm Springs. He wore a bespoke suit that fit him like a glove. Eleanor was his perfect counterpart, slender, poised, her ash-blonde hair coiffed to perfection. She was dressed in a sheath of cobalt blue, and diamonds glittered at her ears and throat. They were a portrait of consolidated power and taste. Their eyes lifted as we approached, and I watched the carefully orchestrated performance of their expressions. Alistair's smile didn't so much as falter as it underwent a subtle recalibration, the warmth cooling by several degrees. Eleanor's gaze was a swift, surgical scan, taking in my boots, my flannel, my face, and filing me away in a mental cabinet labeled irrelevant. "Mom, Dad," Julian said, "this is Maya's father, Michael Pendelton." Alistair rose, his movements fluid and confident. "Michael," he boomed, his voice accustomed to filling rooms. He took my hand in a crushing grip, a test of dominance. "A pleasure. I'm Alistair, and this is my wife, Eleanor." Eleanor offered a hand with fingers as cool and smooth as marble. How lovely to finally meet the man who raised such an impressive daughter. Her smile was a masterpiece of condescension, so polished it almost looked genuine. We were seated at a prime table by the window. Somehow, I was maneuvered into the chair with the slightly wobbly leg, the one that forced me to look slightly up at Alistair. The menus arrived, heavy, leather-bound tomes with no prices. "The wine list here is exceptional," Eleanor announced, perusing the leather-bound folio. "We're considering adding several of their reserve vintages to our hotel cellars." 12 properties now, Started with one rundown motel, built it into an empire through sheer will of force. He said it with a grin, but the boast was unmistakable. Maya, trying to bridge the chasm, spoke up. Dad worked in energy development for years, big construction projects, wind farms and such.
How rugged, Eleanor said, her tone implying the opposite. That must have been physically demanding work. The sommelier arrived. Alistair ordered a $300 bottle of Bordeaux. Eleanor selected a rare white Burgundy. Julian and Maya followed suit with premium cocktails. "And for you, sir?" the sommelier asked me. "Just water, please, with ice." A beat of profound silence. Alistair cleared his throat, leaning forward, his expression one of benign curiosity. "So, Michael, tell us about yourself. Retirement treating you well?" I folded my hands on the tablecloth, letting the pause stretch just long enough to be noticeable. "I keep busy. Did maintenance and site management for Solara Nexus for over 30 years. Kept the turbines spinning and the solar fields running. It was honest work." "Renewable energy," Alistair nodded, already categorizing me. "Important field. Good for the branding, you know? All our new properties are pursuing green certifications." "I was lucky to be part of something bigger than myself," I said, my voice humble. Eleanor leaned in, her diamonds winking. "It's so admirable that you embrace that uncomplicated lifestyle, Michael. Not everyone has the temperament for minimalism." "Mom," Julian began, a flush on his cheeks. "It's true, Julian," Eleanor said smoothly. "There's a certain dignity in knowing what you need and what you can do without." The appetizers arrived. Seared scallops, foie gras, a salad that was an architectural marvel. I had chosen the soup. "So you're fully retired now?" Alistair pressed. "Fixed income and all that?" "I get by. Don't eat much." Eleanor made a soft, sympathetic sound. "Boulder can be so expensive. The cost of living must be a concern. I hope you have a good financial planner." "I manage." Julian placed a hand on Maya's arm. "We just want Maya to be able to focus on her career without any additional pressures." He looked meaningfully at me. "A surgeon's life is incredibly demanding." The subtext was as clear as the crystal water glass in front of me. I was the additional pressure, a burden they would have to manage. Alistair raised his wine glass. "Family is everything, Michael. When we built our business, we did it for legacy, creating something that lasts, something substantial." He took a sip. "Success means different things to different people. Some are content with a simple life. Others are driven to build." The main courses were presented with theatrical flair. Alistair's dry-aged ribeye was a dark, formidable slab. Eleanor's bronzino was arranged with geometric precision. My braised short rib, the cheapest entree, was still a masterpiece compared to my usual fare. "That's precisely why we wanted this dinner, Michael," Alistair said, sawing into his steak. "We've been blessed, and we believe in sharing that blessing." Eleanor nodded. "We've given it considerable thought. We'd like to offer you a monthly stipend, nothing extravagant, but enough to ensure your comfort. Perhaps $700, $800. The number hung in the air, a carefully calculated insult, disguised as generosity. Enough to make me feel indebted, not enough to change my life. "That's very kind," I said, my voice low, "but I couldn't possibly accept charity." "It's not charity," Alistair said, a little too quickly. "It's a family investment. We're investing in Julian and Maya's peace of mind. When they don't have to worry about your situation, they can build their future together." Situation. The word was a coffin nail.
"And in return," Eleanor added, her voice sweet as poison, "we just ask that you give them space. Let them establish their marriage without feeling obligated. Young couples need room to breathe." I looked at Maya, Her eyes were wide, glued to her plate. She was biting her lower lip, a childhood habit she'd never broken. She was mortified, trapped between the family she knew and the family she wanted to join. She said nothing. "I'll need to think about it," I said quietly. Alistair smiled, a victor's smile. "Of course. But remember, Michael, pride is a luxury. Sometimes the wisest man is the one who knows when to accept help." The plates were cleared, leaving behind the evidence of a meal that was more performance than sustenance. Alistair's steak was half-eaten, her fish was picked at. My plate was clean. "Excuse me," Eleanor said, catching a server's eye. "Could you please box these leftovers?" She gestured to the expensive scraps on their plates. She then turned to me, her smile benevolent and utterly crushing. "Michael, you should take these home. Waste not, want not, right? This food is too good to throw away." The air at the table froze. The server, a young woman, looked acutely uncomfortable. Maya's face was a mask of horror. Julian stared at his lap. "This is very thoughtful of you, Eleanor," I managed, the words ash in my mouth. "It's practical," she said, her voice carrying in the hushed room. "We always take care of our family. That's just who we are." The server packaged the leftovers with pained efficiency, the half-eaten $90 steak, the mangled $70 fish, even the untouched bread and imported butter. She placed the bag, a stark white beacon of my humiliation, beside my chair. The black leather folio arrived, placed discreetly next to Alistair. The total, visible through the slot, was $2,450. "This one's on us," Alistair declared, his magnanimity restored. "A celebration of family." He pulled a gleaming platinum card from a crocodile skin wallet and slid it into the folio. The server returned with the portable reader. Alistair inserted his card, already turning back to us with a satisfied expression. The reader beeped, a sharp, negative sound. "I'm sorry, sir. It's been declined." Alistair's head snapped around. "That's impossible! Run it again!" She did. Same result. "There must be a system error," he blustered, his face beginning to flush. "That card has a 6-figure limit." "Try the business account card, Alistair," Eleanor whispered, her composure cracking. He fumbled for another card. Gold this time. "This one's linked directly to our corporate accounts. There is always plenty in there." A vein throbbed in Alistair's temple. He was now frantically typing on his phone, his banking app refusing to cooperate. The neighboring tables were openly staring, whispering behind their hands. Our little drama had become the evening's entertainment. "Perhaps I could be of assistance," I said, my voice calm and clear. All eyes swiveled to me. Alistair paused his frantic typing. I reached into my worn leather wallet. I moved past the simple blue debit card, and my fingers closed around the cold, heavy weight of the titanium card. I drew it out slowly, placing it on the table, with a soft, definitive click.
The server's eyes widened. She had likely never seen one in person. It was a card that didn't ask for permission, it commanded it. "Mr. Pendelton," she said, her demeanor shifting instantly to one of profound respect. "Of course, right away." The transaction was processed in absolute silence. No beeps, no declines, just the quiet whir of approval. I let the silence stretch, thick and heavy, before I spoke. "There's something you should all know," I began, my voice still quiet, but now carrying a different kind of weight. "I am not a retired construction worker." Maya's head jerked up. "Dad? I am the Senior Vice President of Western Operations for Solara Nexus Energies. We develop and manage the majority of the renewable energy infrastructure in 7 states. I turned my gaze to Alistair, whose face had gone pale. "My annual salary is just over $600,000. A significant portion of that is bonus and stock, making my monthly compensation approximately $52,000. Eleanor made a small, choked sound. "But here's the part you'll find most interesting, Alistair." I leaned forward slightly. Your hotel group is one of our largest commercial clients. 12 properties, massive HVAC systems, heated pools, 24-hour lighting, industrial laundry facilities. Your energy consumption is staggering. Understanding was dawning in Alistair's eyes, a dawning horror. Your average monthly energy bill across the Sterling Hospitality Group is $31,000. And for the last 8 years, every single contract, every renewal, every variance request over $25,000 has crossed my desk for final approval. I've personally signed off on keeping the lights on and keeping the water hot in every one of your legacy properties. The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the plush carpet. I see you weren't just having dinner with Maya's father tonight. You were dining with the man who holds the switch to your entire empire. I stood up, picking up my keys. I left the doggy bag of leftovers sitting beside the chair. No, I said, answering Alistair's unspoken apology. You didn't know, and that was the whole point. You showed me exactly who you are when you think someone has nothing to offer you. I looked at Maya, her face a canvas of shock, shame, and dawning realization. I'll be in the car, sweetheart. I walked out of the dining room, through the opulent lobby, and into the crisp mountain night. The cold air felt like a baptism. I didn't look back. Maya found me 10 minutes later, leaning against the Subaru. The stars were brilliant pinpricks in the vast black sky above the mountains. I don't even know what to say, she whispered, her breath misting in the air. You don't have to say anything right now. All these years. Why, Dad? Why the apartment? The car? The charade? It was never a charade. This, I gestured to myself, to the car. This is a choice. It's the life I want. The money is a tool that gives me security and freedom, but it doesn't define me. I wanted it to never define you. I guess I failed.
You didn't fail, she said, her voice fierce with sudden emotion. I failed. I got swept up in their world. I was so afraid they wouldn't approve of me that I forgot to be proud of you, the real you. She wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. When Eleanor offered you those leftovers, I've never been so ashamed of myself in my life. I should have stood up. I should have stopped it. You're standing up now, I said gently. That's what matters. What happens to them? To Julian? That's not my concern. Their financial troubles are their own. As for Julian, that's for you to decide. Do you love the man, or do you love the idea of the man his parents created? Does he love you, or does he love the idea of the brilliant surgeon who would be a perfect addition to the Sterling legacy? She was silent for a long time, looking up at the stars. I need to think. I know. The drive back to Boulder was mostly quiet, but the silence was different now. Contemplative, not strained. Will you tell me, she asked finally, as the city lights appeared in the distance, about your work? The real story? I'd like that, I said, a genuine smile finally touching my lips. I'd like that very much. As we pulled up to my simple apartment building, she looked at it with new eyes. You really could live anywhere. I know, I said, but this is home. It has everything I need. The only thing I was ever trying to prove was to you, that your father was a man of character. And tonight, I think, in a very strange way, I finally did. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You always were, Dad. I was just too blind to see it. Looking back on that night at the Silverthorn, I see a different pattern now. It wasn't just about revenge or teaching the Sterlings a lesson. It was a necessary crucible for my daughter. A harsh but vital reminder of the bedrock values she was raised on. values that had gotten buried under the glitter of a different world. The true wealth I possess was never in my bank account. It was in the quiet satisfaction of a life lived on my own terms, and in the hope that my daughter would find the courage to do the same. The Sterlings taught me that some people wear their wealth like armor, to keep the world out. I've learned to wear my simplicity the same way, to keep my soul in. And that, I realized, is a legacy worth more than any hotel chain.